Hill here in college at the Gabelli School of Business. I'm studying business administration with a primary concentration in finance and secondary in marketing. I'm from Long Island, so we've got another Long Island pal on the line. So let's just kick it off by just introducing ourselves. And based off my screen, I'm going to head with Michelle first.
Hi, everybody. Thank you all for joining us. And I know you guys can all be doing something else at this time, and I'm happy that you're all with us. My name is Michelle Hopson. I'm a Fordham alumna, 2008. The school was called Fordham College Liberal Studies, but changed now to PCS. And happy to be here. I am the principal and managing member of Hopson Consultancy, a certified minority-owned business in Connecticut.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today. My name is Denya ChinQuee. I am a Fordham alumna from the Gabelli School of Management. I got my MBA in 2006. I'm currently over at CBS, leading the ad sales research team, really just working on insights, understanding cultures and viewers, and just finding people wherever they are. And so it's pretty exciting today.
All right, and my name is Theresa Calabrese. I graduated Fordham Gabelli in 2008 as well. Michelle, I guess we were the same class. And today I serve as the Chief Growth Officer at Northwestern Mutual on Park Avenue. And really what that means is I help the financial advisors in our firm grow and develop as we serve clients in their financial planning. So excited to be with all of you today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for a little intro. Just to kick it off, a question would be, what's something right now that you're working on, personal or professional, that you find is really interesting? Yeah.
Michelle, why don't you go?
All right. Well, currently one of my funnest projects, but don't tell my other clients, I'm working with the University of Connecticut's Graduate School of Financial Risk Management. My practice is a capstone sponsor, and what we're doing is developing a risk management model for the nonprofit sector. And it's multi-year, multi-phase. And what we're doing is I'm having graduate students every spring build this model from the ground up. And then we're going to have it, the research used for academic publication, and then actually develop a model for everybody's use. So to me, that's the largest kind of long-term legacy impact. And I'm just excited to be part of kind of, behind the scenes and helping advise the teams figure out what they want to do. That's what I'm doing.
I'd actually like to share right now personally, I am the mom of twin girls. So in addition to working on all of these exciting projects, and of course the media landscape is changing at a rapid speed that we're all trying to keep up with. But my 10-year-olds have driven me to try to really master my TikTok skills. So you will find me on the weekends trying to do all the interesting moves that they're going to be embarrassed that I even did this on camera. But, just definitely, while professionally, there's just so many exciting things going on a personal note, definitely trying to solidify all of my TikTok moves so that I can stay current with my children.
That's amazing. I love that. I took that question because they send the questions in advance, right? So I was looking at that question. I'm like, what's something interesting that I'm doing? And, 9 times out of 10, I would think work stuff. But now that it's COVID, I think everybody has to be working on something, because you can't just go out on the weekends and do everything you would normally do. And so, things I'm working on that are far less interesting. I've become very handy over COVID. I've done a lot of house projects, painting rooms, renovating rooms. Now that the weather's a little bit nicer, I started gardening. And things are pretty lame when you're excited to pull weeds out of your garden. So right now, what I'm working on is really just a lot of home reno kind of stuff, DIY stuff that normally I would just never have the time for, but you find the time in COVID.
That's amazing. Denya, you'll definitely have to have those TikTok dances in your back pocket once we're released from.
I'm trying. I'm definitely trying. It's definitely it's harder. It's harder now than when I was younger. I don't know why, but it's, you have to stay with the new wave. So trying my best.
Absolutely, A for effort, totally. Um, bounce off of that. So, what would be something if you could learn anything? What would that be besides a TikTok? That could be also one thing.
I'll go. That's okay. I've always wanted to be able to sing or dance, like like a real dance, not just like dance at a wedding or something. And I have zero talent in either of those spaces, and I try sometimes, and it's always terrible. But if I could do anything, I'd be a great singer or a great dancer. Maybe I'll take some lessons from you, Denya.
Well, interestingly enough, I would totally piggyback off of your COVID experience in the DIY. I have these real dreams of being a great carpenter. And at some point, whether it's building a table or a bookshelf or a desk. So, if that is a career option alternative, that would probably be on my list. And it's just, so far away from what I do day to day now. But, if there was an ability to pivot into something very passion point and interesting, I would be helping you out on those weekends. So I'll let you know.
Yeah, we can help each other.
Well, if I could learn to do anything, I wish I would be funny. No, but like professionally funny.
Sounds good.
The problem is I think I'm funny, but nobody else is laughing or nobody else thinks I'm funny. So it's like either nerdy jokes or mom jokes or inside my head jokes. But I would really like to be a professional comedian if I had a dream. I think they're one of the smartest people alive, right? Because I believe they're artists, but I just got no funny skills, guys. You guys just send me websites, please. Maybe I'll start TikTok and then just through my own like silliness, I'll be funny. I don't know.
I'm with you there. I feel like I laugh at my jokes way too hard. So just to segue a little bit more towards what we're here for today, if you guys could talk a little bit about what woman has positively impacted or inspired you in your career, and what are some lessons that she taught you? So these examples could definitely be from leaders or family members or celebrities, colleagues.
I'll go first. When Michelle Obama became the first lady, she really taught me how to be a great wife. The one thing I remember her saying that I will never, ever forget is, when I think she was asked, what do you like about Barack? And she goes, I like how he thinks. And I thought that was the smartest answer. A wife, an attorney, right? All her various identities. I thought that was the smartest thing because, as females, we're always thinking about like what, the list of, okay, does he have a job? Is he this height? Is he from this type of family? Is he religious? Is he not religious? Does he believe in physics? All this list of things, but really, it's really inspired me to kind of think of everything in that way. Like, do I like how that person thinks? Do I like how my husband thinks? And I can pretty much say yes. So, but she's really has inspired me from that point of view, among other things that she's done.
I have, I guess, a personal experience to share. A few years back, I had just recently switched into a new job, a new role. I was very excited. And there was my first big meeting. Definitely senior level executives were there. And if you're familiar with the normal conference room setup, when we used to be in conference rooms, there would be the table and everyone sat at the table, the executives, and then they'd have seats around the outside. And I came into the room quietly and sat along the side. And the senior level executive, who was a woman, she turned to me and said, always take your seat at the table. She said, no one's going to make that seat for you. When you come into a room, bring your whole self, bring your presence, take your seat at the table because you have a contribution and you're not a spectator. And it was just such a powerful moment to just be able to first recognize how I was entering a room. I don't think that I would have the awareness around, something as simple as the seat that I chose and the impression that it could give someone as I enter a room, or how seriously I'm taken in terms of what I can bring to the conversation. But then also, you know, it's just amazing that even in my first week at a new job, this woman felt that it was so important to share that experience and share that knowledge with me. And so I think that moving forward, ever since that day, I walk into every room with that idea that I have something really unique to bring to the table and valuable. So that's something I would always share, moving forward with anyone else. When you walk into a room, or just even if you're unsure of yourself, always take your seat at the table, because you've earned your right to be there. And it's just important that every time you walk into a room, you bring that energy with you.
I can't believe you just shared that, because my story is so similar. And I connect with that so much, because I always struggled with I always sometimes still do, but I've gotten a lot better at speaking my mind and saying what I'm thinking on the spot in the moment, and not like an hour later, I should have said this. And I got the question originally, I thought to myself, like, honestly, I haven't had a ton of female mentors in my career. Most of them have been men. If I think about like the ultimate person who's taught me, of course, my mom. She's like the strongest woman I know. But there was one woman who mentored me. Her name was Kathleen Nemec. None of you would know her. Wildly impactful for me in the short time that she mentored me into, at the time I was taking on the COO role for our firm, which is a big job that I wasn't qualified for. And I was thankful she saw that in me. She said to me something similar. She said, when you're invited to the table, you speak at the table. And people may not like what you have to say, and that's okay, because if they don't, they'll stop inviting you. But as long as they invite you to sit at the table, you speak at the table. And just saying that is just words, but she would also, after a meeting, pull me aside and say, okay, how'd that meeting go? What were you thinking? And of course, I was thinking 3 or 4 things that I never said in the meeting. And she would challenge me to say, well, why didn't you say that? And next week, I want you to bring it up in this meeting. And in the meeting, she would call on me randomly and say, what are you thinking right now? And she really helped me develop my voice. And she was just the start of that, because she's really the only female mentor I've had professionally. And I've had a lot of excellent male mentors, and they've helped me tremendously in that space too. I have a gentleman who's a mentor of mine, and he always describes it as like, if you imagine your mind being a book, and the book is open, and what you're thinking is on the left side of the page, and what you're saying is on the right side of the page, to the extent that you can have everything that's on the left side of the page mirror that on the right side of the page, like, then you're really speaking your mind. Now, of course, everyone has to have a filter. Like, some people may need to be coached opposite but from where I was, that was the feedback I needed. And my current boss, who's a sponsor, is an advocate of mine, I'm so thankful for. He also just validates a lot of the things that I like. If I say something in a meeting, he'll highlight it and reinforce it, and that helps build confidence. And so I think, if you can find people, I've always found that like great leaders have believed in me more than I believed in myself. And because of that, I've been able to grow in confidence and knowing, hey, what I'm talking about actually may make some sense, believe it or not. So that's what I got on that topic. Hope that helps.
Thank you so much. That's incredibly inspiring. I think there's such an importance of people uplifting people, but also women uplifting women. And we also have Marlene on the line if she wants to introduce herself and if she I don't know if she caught that end of that question, but it's basically a woman who has positively impacted your career, and that could be a leader, celebrity, a family member, anybody.
You're on mute.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to be on this, inviting me to be part of this panel. I got to hear the last speaker, and that I actually wrote down that quote: when you're invited to the table, you speak at the table. I love that. 79 biology degree. Originally planned on going to med school. I am a physician assistant. However, through the PA profession has grown over the past few decades, and I'm currently the assistant director of HIV and addiction medicine at the Ryan Center. The Ryan Center is a federally qualified health center. My career has included working on the floors in hospital settings to the last few decades in outpatient medicine, where I've treated over thousands of patients with infectious diseases, mainly HIV, but also comorbid conditions like hypertension, diabetes. As patients have been able to, live close to a normal lifespan with this disease, they develop the diseases that you may see in communities of color, where heart disease, cancers, strokes continue to be prevalent. So, as a PA, people think physician's assistant, right? And it's thought that you're helping out the doctor. However, once you find your niche or your area of passion in medicine, you can grow in that field. And that's what I did, in fact, in the infectious disease field. So much so that I have patients who have followed me for the last 20 years or so with this chronic illness. PAs can practice as primary care providers, which I am here, in addition to the leadership role that Ryan has finally allowed me to do. I wasn't able to, I think, grow as much in the hospital setting, where they're used to the traditional, intern, resident, fellowship, and then attending. In outpatient medicine, you can become directors of departments, assistant directors, etc. So I did, to get back to the question, a person who in my probably second outpatient HIV job was Dr. Cheryl Smith, who I worked with at North General Hospital, which is no longer in existence. It closed back in 2010. But she was someone who I had met when I was on the floors at Mount Sinai. And I remember thinking, I was pregnant with my second son. And I, so obviously, like I got married like later in life, right? My career. And then when I was 36, I had my first child after getting married in, I was 35. And working on the floors, I remember thinking, how am I going to continue to be a mom and have the career I want? How am I going to be able to, do all the things that it takes to become an involved mom, but also I'm at the point in my career where things are starting to really grow. I had been in infectious disease for a decade at that time. So I met these 5 or 6 amazing attendings. So the attendings in medicine are like the CEOs of, in business, right? They're the people who finish internship, residency, fellowship, and have landed their careers in that specialty. So I remember the 5 of them like yesterday: Dr. Fran Wallach, Dr. Sean Jones, Dr. Cheryl Smith, Fran Wallach, and they were all mothers. And I just remembered, like, wow, these are the attendings. So the attendings you talk to at the end of the day, once you've seen the patients, and they just sign off on the cases. They don't even have to see the patients, but you've done the work already. you've seen the patients, you've examined them, you made the orders, you prescribed the medicine on the floors, and then they just sign off on your chart. But I remember them being so supportive of my skills as a PA, and just very supportive of growing in the field. So I wasn't thinking physician assistant, I can't go any further. One of them became the director of an outpatient clinic at North General. So she actually reached out to me in the next year and said, I'd like you to come on staff here. The type of provider she was what is part of the fabric of who I am in terms of the community and why I went into medicine. And so to see her be that as an attending, I was sort of like under her wings, and my practice grew. And fast forward to 2021, where the patients in the waiting room are the patients from North General. So they went with me from North General to Montefiore, and now here to the Ryan Clinic. And so she gave me a lot of the ability to just speak up, say what I want, just move forward academically, just in terms of leadership skills, which I hadn't really thought of, but it's really helped develop my career to the point where it is now. And so I'm someone who grew up and didn't really speak that much. Like, I was really super quiet, actually stuttered as a child, and was super quiet up until Fordham, where I found my buddies, who I'm friends with these women to this day. We lived in Spelman Hall at the Rose Hill site, which is now a Jesuits. I'm told the Jesuits lived there, but it was an all girls dorm back in the 70s, 75 to 79. And so these women are my sister friends to this day. But the bottom line is Cheryl Smith, Dr. Cheryl Smith was that woman who allowed me to practice out of the box and not necessarily stay inside these guidelines, which, usually the attendings are men, right? And usually, white men. So here it is, I had an African-American female physician who was my mentor. And so I let her know that every time I run into her, but I thank her for that. Yeah.
That's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing. And
You're
this really emphasizes the importance of women uplifting women and how
Yes.
powerful that is.
Yes.
And just to go on to another question, what are some gender-specific challenges, stereotypes, barriers that you had to personally overcome during your career?
Well, it's a man's world, they say, right? So for myself, launching my own practice, being a business owner, that's a man's job. So that's one barrier. Some of the projects and gigs I've taken were in the tech field. So for about a year and a half, I did like senior project management for an IT and SaaS. And, talk about a minority of women being part of a technology place, right? So that's one. And also through my consulting practice, some of the projects and the board members that I work with, board chairs and board specific roles are typically male dominant. And so that's kind of, the landscape of things for me and from what I've experienced.
I mean, for sure in medicine, I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm on mute. Okay. So for sure in medicine, predominantly male dominant in terms of those in again, the heads of departments, the administrative roles. And so I've definitely dealt with that. I remember working at Beth Israel, and a colleague of mine and I would go into a patient's room because we were assigned to that floor. And when we went in to see the patients, they assumed that I was the assistant to my fellow. He's a male who, I don't know, because we had the same experience and everything. But again, patients assume. I think everyone kind of, assume, oh, you're his assistant or you're the nurse who works with him. And I'm like, oh my gosh, no, we're the same. We do the same things. So that's a challenge that I definitely recall that sticks with me. And I have to almost like wear my credentials on my sleeve to kind of overly, not to compensate, but to kind of, it's just sad that that has to happen, where you need to make sure that you state who you are before they see what you do. So once I get to see the patients, they're fine, and but it's just the initial impression or the preconceived notions. I have a patient who I remember he told a social worker like he wanted to see a male provider. Actually, he was like a gay male provider because he was a gay male. So his last doctor had been a gay male. So he said he wanted that here. The one, so in HIV, we're very open about, gender stuff and sexuality stuff, as though it's one of the demographics that how old the patient is, what they want. So it's fine. But then I'm all the opposite, right? I'm heterosexual Black female. So it's like, so I was the only provider available, but at the end of that visit, where so much so that he's like, I've never met a better doctor than you. Like we are, I don't want anyone else. I want you. But it's about what took place in that room and how we bonded. And, first it's, the exam is secondary, but first, who are you? When were you diagnosed with HIV? And just the way that I, operate as a provider. But it's just, people assume that you get a certain amount of care from certain people, right? Because of their male, female, how old they are, what they look like. And then you almost have to show by demonstrating who you are and showing and then take it from there. But that's definitely something. And also now I don't look like, but when I was younger in my career, it was like, how old are you? How long have you been doing this? Meanwhile, I'm 63. Like but there's been times throughout my career where you're just out of school. I'm like, no, I'm not. I've been treating HIV from the beginning of the epidemic. And so that, depending on the patient population, I'm in the city now at the Chelsea, in the Hell's Kitchen area. So it's a different patient population from my South Bronx, Montefiore, mostly African-American and Latino patients who are, they're all different. And I get some of the same things from both groups. It's just, I really have to, I've never ever been like, quote unquote, fired until I came here. But I have to say, no, there was one patient who was upset that I didn't give him a controlled substance at Montefiore. So he fired me, and that's fine. I don't want to lose my license. But here, there was a patient, he just was, I'm very, we have a certain amount of time we have to see patients, like 20 minutes, but they get upset about that. So I sometimes go over not knowing it because they want to talk more, or they have something else they forgot to show me. And so this patient was not happy that I was not on time for his appointment. So out of all of my 5-star reviews on Health Grades, he's the first patient who said, like, Marlene Taylor is not whatever. She's always late. But other than that, I'd like to feel as though, even though they think certain things determine how a person is going to develop a relationship with you as their primary care provider, it's not always that. It's not always, for all intents and purposes, a white male in a white jacket. It might be a Black female who doesn't look like what you envision a provider to be. So that's something that I have to deal with on and off throughout my career.
Marlene, I so appreciate the story you shared, and I think it's something that I've definitely personally experienced the same. When you walk into a room and it's really not necessarily just a woman or a female concern versus a male. We all are human, so we walk into a room and there will be some subconscious evaluation of maybe or perception of who you're dealing with. Oftentimes I've walked in the same vein, whether there's an assumption of I'm fresh out of school, or, you know, the idea that you have to really wear your credentials on your sleeve. You know, I have to say, oh, over 15 years of experience. And I don't know if anyone else has had to, you know, kind of, you're almost speaking to your worth before you've even had the opportunity to just present it through your work or your actions.
Exactly.
And I think that was just, for me, that's one of the challenges I've encountered. And then just to add, like on a personal note, and you know, this is probably more, you know, internally, but it took me a long time to come into work and just come present myself just as myself and be comfortable. You know, can I wear my hair curly? Do I have to have it straight? You know, if I'm not, you know, in a full suit, does that now make me look younger than if I had come in business casual? You know, those are thoughts that, you know, I'm constantly trying to almost like, you know, I guess in some ways make sure that the narrative is really true to the person that's walking into the room. And so just, again, just kind of co-signing your entire experience. It's just, you know, I don't know if it's just as women that that happens, but I do know that, you know, it's a constant, you know, even if it's in the back of your mind, just knowing that I have to kind of overcome a perception, and it not just be based on the work.
I don't know that I could say anything that would hasn't already been said. You know, I just knew joining a financial services firm, I knew I'd be in the minority. So not that it's never bothered me, but it was just an expectation walking in. I do have one, I think it's kind of funny story. And I was like 22. I just graduated from Fordham. I now have found my voice professionally, but at the time I was very like timid and happy to please and what do you need help with? Which wasn't a bad attitude to have when you're like fresh out of school and just trying to figure things out. But one of the roles I was given the opportunity to do was coach new advisors when they started with the company. And, you know, they're all entrepreneurs, you know, we're all small business owners. And so there's nobody has like a manager per se, everyone's their own boss, but the firm provides certain services. So a business coach is one of the services provided. And so I was contracted to do some of that work. And every time someone came in, I would just say like, great job. And I was like, kind of like a cheerleader to them, which isn't really what they need. They need someone to tell them the truth of how they're doing and compare like their business results in comparison to their business plan. And the partner, not the current partner of our firm, who's like my mentor, but this was a different firm that I worked in. He pulled me aside and he said, and I'm sorry, I hope that is okay. I'm gonna use a little profanity. He said, Theresa, you know, you do a great job, but you got to take your bitch pills. That's what he said to me. And I was so shocked at that. You know, of course, I'm like, okay, yes, sir. Like, let me go find those and I'll take them. And, you know, I left his office with my head held high, but then of course, like called my mom, cried and was like, he told me to take my bitch pills. And, you know, what I learned later, because then I shared that with my mentor who helped translate what the partner was trying to tell me in a constructive way. And to this day, you know, people in the firm will value their time with me because I do tell them the truth from a place of care and concern. And I have that relationship with them where I can do it because, you know, feedback without a relationship is just harassment. But, you know, that taught me a really valuable lesson. And it's the only thing I could think of when you said, like, are there any stereotypes you've had to deal with? Like, I'm sure I have. I guess I just kind of let them roll off my back. That's the only story that kind of came to mind that I was like, I guess that was kind of had to do with the fact that I was a woman. So there's that.
Well, thank you all for sharing. It's definitely something as a college student, it's really important to understand and hear from people that are in industry that there are obstacles in the way, but definitely it's inspiring to see how you guys have all overcome in some capacity over those. So thank you. And so, what are some of the ways and most effective ways to counteract the negative stereotypes of feminism, especially in the workplace?
All right. So for myself, I can only speak for myself, but what's really worked is to continue to always be a systems thinker. You know, follow the process, be a systems thinker, where I'm looking at all of the different functions, data, patterns, systems, so that when I'm formulating some kind of recommendation or contribution, that it's coming from a place of not like I'm coming in too hot kind of thing, because I know what's going on and I know that I've been doing this, right? So for me, it's really part of it is remembering to always be a systems thinker, use the experiences that I have to kind of help through guiding and having my voice kind of have that evidence of why here are all the options, you guys decide. But that's one piece. The second piece is to have social perceptiveness, and that takes years of working similar, to Theresa, where it's like in my 20s, it's like I didn't know how much to dial up my ego or not. I don't know how much to kind of come in too strong or not, but that, social perceptiveness and critical hermeneutics takes years and years and a lot of diversity of experiences and a lot of diversity, talking with a lot of people, working at a lot of places, talking to a lot of different people, enjoying a lot of different things in my life. That's really helped me kind of combat and not just be tolerant of any negativity because of my gender, or any negativity because I'm coming in, a little too confident. It's really knowing kind of, okay, always fall into systems thinking, follow the process, remain ethical, dial up my ego when it's appropriate, dial it back down when it's not, understanding and reading the room through social perceptiveness and critical hermeneutics. Those are the kinds of things that's helped me through my time, just kind of always convert and transform, these really tough, these tough conversations, especially like, if you're coming from a place of connection, people will get it. Most people, and it's business and it's work, we're all trying to move everything forward. So that's what's worked for me to date.
I just learned a new word. Thank you. I just Googled that.
I also think, I guess, in terms of, I think the easiest way for me to explain it, just in terms of my perception is again, it's IQ and EQ. Right now, you might be in school and, you work hard, you study for an exam, you get into your career, and it's important to always stay on top of what is happening in your industry, not just your industry, around the world. Being able to be a strategic thinker, it does require you to also, really stay on top of what's happening around you so that you can understand how you need to position or to pivot in so many ways. And then when it comes to EQ, again, having the emotional intelligence to understand that, maybe your coworker isn't upset with you, or, doesn't think that, you're lacking in skills. Maybe they're home in COVID with all of their kids and everyone is in a tight apartment. It's just so important to understand that the same way that you have life circumstances impact your day-to-day, that it also might happen on the other end. So first, of course, as I said, IQ, always be on top of your game. There's always something new to learn. Never stop, trying to absorb information, whether it's from a senior leader or if it's from a newspaper, or I'll say Google instead, because that would date me. And then again, EQ, just knowing that, it's really important to always have first understanding about how you are being perceived or come across, but also to know that others have other, whether it be personal, professional, everyone has something different that's contributing to how they're presenting into the office.
So for me, I know that, yeah, it's something that you don't necessarily always think about, because once we're in our roles, and have developed, experience where we just do what we do well. Examples of that, I have to think, I often think of some of the younger women who work in my department, and also students who shadow me in the clinic. So, and I noticed the differences. Some will be super, like quiet and just watch the patients and not engage. And then there are others who continually are overly involved and even ask the patients questions. And even though they know the policy is you can't really interact with the patients like that. So I see extremes in the younger, in the students, and then in the younger, whether it's a case manager or a nurse or a PA, certain things that clearly develop with time and with maturity in that field. And so I think, first is, as you both mentioned, being on top of your game and knowing your craft, to the point that you're current with data or whatever, depending on the area of expertise. But also the maturity that comes along with that, and knowing when to speak and say something, and when to just listen and then say something later on. I think, I see examples of that. I have a young woman who works in our department, and she's so smart, and she's so good at knowing how to, the facts about the job, right? But then sometimes she'll say things that are like, oh, you got to tell them this, I got to get you. And it's like, no, that's not how does that, when does that get better? And I realize that that's something that comes with maturity and with knowing yourself and being able to look at what your skill set is, what your strengths are, and being able to tap into that when necessary. Some things definitely with age, with time, with experience, and other things have to do with, your unique personality traits that make you you. And so I look at how I practice as though as a combination of all of these things, my strengths and weaknesses, what I need to know in medicine, obviously, disease states and diagnosis, treatment, and current data around, whether it's COVID or HIV or an STD, and then who you're dealing with and knowing how to interact with that patient. And I call that meeting them where they are. So I think it's a being able to involve all of those pieces of the puzzle, and then coming up with how you approach whoever you have to interact with and what you need to do on a daily basis. Because you can have part of that and it cannot be good. For example, like my younger case manager person who's amazing, but trying to instill that it's not something I can teach her. She just has to, with time, maybe get feedback and, various things along her career that'll show her that maybe some of those, the way she approaches certain things are not the best in this field. But, I think it's a combination of looking at all of those things, who you are, what you need to know from a didactic point, and also, knowing where you work. I don't necessarily approach, for example, an 85-year-old Cuban male who just came here as I do maybe a Puerto Rican person who's lived here all their life. They're both Hispanic, right? But there are different things that they come to the table with, that they come to the exam room with. And so I have, I've had patients from Africa who've come to me and they don't really speak that much, but then they just sit on the exam table and lift their shirt up. And I have to say, let's have a conversation first. But they're so used to someone just doing what they do, like doctors just examining them and not talking. There's so many examples of just being able to know, and I don't even know if this is answering the question because I feel like I went off on a tangent, but on another tangent. But I think knowing, all of those pieces together to be able to say and feel as though you are the best you possibly can be in that field. I don't know if that answered the question.
Marlene, I think you're the real deal.
You guys are. I'm like, wait, these are like super women here who I'm on this panel with.
I'll be brief. I know we're running short on time. And so I think the most effective way to counteract any stereotype, and I guess like, I don't, and I'll just speak from my firm and my experience. Like, I don't think there's anyone who's like, oh, Theresa, she's a woman. Like, let's discount her. I think a lot of it's just unconscious, and none of it's I don't think on purpose. And so I don't think you need to go in with a plan of like, how do I, counteract stereotypes? Like, my advice would be simple, and it's get results. If you're a woman in your field, get clear on how you are measured in your performance and what generates revenue for you, and get results. Because if you're getting results, everyone will listen. If you're not getting results, you may think they're not listening because you're a woman, and you might be right, but they may not be listening because you're not getting results. So, I think if you want to join an industry that's male dominated, or if you want to stand out, then get results.
And just to piggyback from all of you, what you guys are saying, and Theresa, from getting results, before you get results, make your skills be so noticeable that they will not ignore your skills. Not you, not your hair, not what your clothes are wearing, not your pedigree, but make your skills so unforgettable that you will eventually get the results, but also just do the work, right? So if I had one piece of advice for you all, is just continue to do the work, work on all your various identities, because it's not just work, right? In order for you to be really good at something, you gotta know a lot of things and screw up and mess up in different ways. Volunteer in an organization, find leadership in that way, but make your skills so noticeable that you will eventually get, the results will come, whether it's results, the bonus, the title, the money, but just work and do it right. And don't forget, as Jesuit educated, we have spiritual gifts, and don't forget that side of us that makes us a little bit more competitive, right? So we're competing with Columbia and NYU, right? These are the 3 feeder schools for these top positions. And guess what they say? This is what makes us different, is that we have this kind of spiritual intuition, all of that stuff. We'll use it as an advantage in that way. So that's just to add a little bit.
Absolutely. Thank you so much to each of you. I've learned quite a bit, and I'm feeling even more prepared to head into the workplace. So let's see if we have any questions from our audience. I'm not sure.
Hopefully everyone didn't drop off while we were talking. Just kidding, kind of.
I don't know if we have any questions. Anybody can throw them in the chat or the Q&A feature through Zoom.
Well, in the meantime, I don't know, Denya, you have any words of wisdom to share?
Every day I wake up and I have all these things that I think that are going to be so impactful that when I share them, honestly, I think it's just, I know one of the questions that, one of the points that we were going to discuss today was just around even, looking at how there's been a shift, how we've seen a shift in the workforce with women. And to be honest, COVID has just put a huge wrench in everything. I mean, if you look at the past 5 years, let's take the last 4 out. So let's look at the prior 4 years. There were so many women in the workforce programs around, childcare and, support groups, parent groups. And, again, not even just as from a working mom perspective, but just encouragement, whether it's women's leadership. And then, now, I mean, the number of articles we're seeing about 3 million women leaving the workforce, and how does that shift going to impact moving forward? And so one of the things I would definitely share is just, even if you see a shift of the number of people that look like you in the room. And for many of us, we've come into those rooms and there haven't been that many that look like me as I enter the room. Please make sure you continue to just bring your whole self. I know I, kind of touched on it in the beginning. I cannot kind of lean into it enough because the moment that you try to start conforming to what you're seeing in the room is probably also the moment that you're not making as much impact, or as, as Theresa mentioned earlier, like, bring results. Those results don't happen just by, sitting idly by. Please make sure you bring yourself into that room, whether or not there are other women there, whether or not there are other, people of the same background, different backgrounds. I just really think that, especially now more than ever, with so many women leaving the workforce and all for real reasons, whether it's, again, we're in a different landscape than we've ever been in before. I don't, wearing masks every day. I mean, this is just something none of us have really ever been prepared for something like this. So just know, moving forward, it's very important to continue to come in, continue to, present all that you have to offer. And there aren't any silly questions. So just make sure that you ask those questions and make sure your voice is heard.
Thank you so much. I do believe we have a question in the chat if everybody can stay for just a brief moment. So the question is, my mom always told me that as a woman, we should never give them our workplaces anything to say negatively or complain about. Do you ever feel pressured to never make a mistake due to the fear you will be stereotyped? And how does one overcome this? Great question.
Well, personally, because I'm crazy inside myself, I'm only talking about myself. So I'm not highly neurotic, but if I make a mistake, I beat myself up. So it's even worse. Everything that somebody would ever tell me, I've already said to myself. Right. So that's just my personality. So whether it's, I don't look at it because I'm a woman, I'm afraid to make a mistake. I look at more from a general perspective of, this is my personality. I know myself. I know all the triggers and the things that I bring into the workplace. And the way I overcome it is actually, knowing myself and doing the work, whether it's self-care and, reading, talking to people, having different types of counselors or therapists at different parts of my life, learning, being around a lot of people, finding signs through nature, or, and I use everything and every resource that's made available to me the moment I wake up, whether it's a prayer from God. And last week it was St. Patrick's Day. So I used the St. Patty's breastplate prayer for divine protection because it helped me center, right? So know that it never goes away. But what really, for me, I understand that, everything in life happens, and I'm not going to say, oh, just this job. If I only had this job, it'll be better. If I had this situation or this type of friendship or this type of partner or this type of project, it'll be better. But, every project has solutions that need your input. And so it's about proper self-care for myself to, so that I can come to the table less, bringing those insecurities in and kind of checking myself in that way. So that's my personal way I deal with it.
Thank you so much. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was honestly just going to say it's not a one size fits all, unfortunately. There are times where, again, you have to speak up. Sometimes it's not really maybe it's not the right business decision. Maybe it's not, these are moments where you will have to evaluate them on a one-on-one basis. It's not a one size fits all. So the idea of being nervous to complain or, will other people perceive you, you also have to be okay with not everyone is going to like me. And professionally, it's not always about, popularity. It can be just as simple as results. So just finding that balance would be the recommendation.
Yeah, and 2-second add to that, like, I don't know exactly what the meaning of that is because I'd have questions for your mom if she was here, but my thinking is that she's speaking to this sense of responsibility that you have, which I think there's some truth to that. Like if you're the only woman or if you're the only person of color, if you're the only in a room, there is some responsibility on your shoulders to do well. And people can disagree with me, but I think what she's trying to say is you need to work harder, you need to get better results, you need to do more, which is frankly a lot of pressure. But the reality is, like, if I'm the only woman, I am setting the example for the next woman who gets recruited. And so I do need to be better. I do need to, I can't just take it easy like other people might be able to, because I am, whether I want to be or not, I'm a leader because I'm the only. And so I think what she's trying to say is just like, you gotta step up your game because you're the only. So I agree with that side of it. But then, I mean, the other side of it is like, listen, as a business owner, you have to fail all the time. Like you literally get people who say no to you more than they say yes. And so I think you have to balance that advice with also understanding, like, if I'm going to be successful at anything, I got to fail more often than I succeed. And I got to quickly pick myself up and move to the next thing so that I can succeed and get even better results, and then continue with that thinking, that original thinking of like, I need to do more and be better, and don't give them any reason to criticize me. Like, I don't know if that helps to answer that question.
And just quickly, finally, just don't forget, mistakes are all teachable moments. We've all made mistakes, and I've overcome a lot of barriers, and because of all of the mistakes I've made in the past in a work setting. And it's okay. And remember that there are so many different types of personalities and different skills because there are so many different solutions and so many different problems. The world is not on your shoulder to fix or be perfect or do this, but also know that, most managers and bosses are looking at patterns. Like if you're doing it 3 times, it's kind of like, all right, it's a pattern. If you keep making the mistakes more than once, okay, the first time, okay, second time you're working at it, but if it happens again the third time after all this and you're doing the same mistake over and over again, then most managers and view it as a pattern. And so you might be best skilled for a different kind of gig, but know that it's okay. It's okay to fail. It's okay to make mistakes. I do it every day. And like Theresa said, I have my own business. So no is an everyday thing, right? And it takes a lot of no's before I get a yes. I have a lot more mistakes before I get a lot of wins. And the wins is just so rewarding because when it's like the right thing, it's like a kaleidoscope. It's so beautiful when it happens. And even getting there, turning it and tweaking it because of that works. But don't be too hard on yourself, but don't forget to bring yourself and your smartness, your heart, and your whole personality and yourself, as Denya mentioned, whenever you're, in a work setting.
Yeah, like my coach always says to me, like, are you done admiring the problem and are you ready to move forward? And I'm
Exactly.
like, yeah, I'm done admiring the problem. Like, I'm ready to move forward. So like fail, but then like move on.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I think a lot of what you guys touched upon is really having confidence in whatever you're doing and in your skills and what you have to bring to the table. And I think that's one question we have in the chat, and that'll be our last one for today. How did you each really develop your confidence into the workplace and how you brought that to any job you had?
Fiona, you kind of broke up a little bit. Can you restate your question? I'm sorry.
Oh, of course, no problem. I think a lot of what, as students and as the audience had asked in the chat, how did you develop the confidence to bring your skills to your industry or your job?
For me, it wasn't just a, wake up one day and you're confident. I mean, even yesterday, there are days where I'm like, oh boy, am I out of my league here? Everyone will have those moments of self-doubt. So when it comes to being confident in the way you present at work, it's really going to come down to just having self-awareness. Know what you do really well. Know what you want to learn how to do really well. It's all a process. It's growth, and it's not just professional growth. It's personal growth. And again, every day, there are chances where, even as a mom, I have 10-year-old twins. Boy, when one was upset at me this morning, I wasn't too confident I was doing a good job. There are moments in your life where you will always kind of say, hey, am I doing the best I can? And just in all those moments, make sure that you're making an effort to do it better the next time or the next time. And so again, it's an everyday process.
Yeah, I think, it's the most common thing. I think I heard all three of us talk about it a little bit, or all four of us even. And you can even Google the confidence gap. It's like a well-known, it's a well-known hurdle for many women. And, I think it just took someone believing in me to grow confidence in myself. And I wish I could give you like a secret sauce, but it took me finding someone who believed, like I didn't even have confidence in me. Like, it wasn't just other people, it was like mostly me. And so it took someone believing in me. So like if you can find a leader that you aspire to be like and just work as hard as you can for them, I think that'll help in your confidence. I hope it does at least. Have some courage too. I read a study that says, I don't know if this is true. I couldn't even tell you the name of the study. It was a while ago, but it was something like when a woman reads a job description to apply somewhere, you've seen this study, it's like she feels like she needs to have 80% of the job description she already knows how to do proficiently and well, versus a man is a lower percentage. And of course that's a stereotype, right? Because not all women, not all men feel that way. But generally, if I'm gonna throw that out there, I don't know why we're wired that way, but I'm sure someone smarter than me does. So I guess my only advice would be take the leap, have some courage. It's okay to screw up.
Yeah, and building confidence requires not just knowing yourself, but your environment, right? And the people you have around you. If you think of your life like a project manager where you have different buckets and different identities, if you fail or make a mistake in this bucket, know that nothing else will, your whole life is not going to topple down, right? So from school to work, you being a part of your family, you being part of the community, you actually being part of creating a family, or if that's in your cards, or creating a business or writing a book. These are all the various identities that will help you bring confidence. And really bringing confidence equals knowing what you really want to be or do, right? Not just the function, but I'm talking about, how do you want to show up in the world? How do you want to use your Fordham education as kind of like this wonderful extra unique thing that makes you unique, right? So, and that will help bring you confidence. And like everybody else that we're talking about, it's really about experience, and having that mentor give you a lot of experience. And it won't ever be shaken, because what your scope of work should be. You can be confident to say, nope, this is not my skill set. This person might be better at it. You'll delegate or not. And know that, even if you need to take a break to just reassess what you need to do, it's okay. But don't ever quit unless you know it's the right time to quit, right? I'm not saying stay in these toxic work situations, but really, really, really look at all the various different identities that you have, and see if there's something you can shift. And, because there's a reason why you're in whatever role or school or class or job that you have. And if it's challenging you at this moment in time, it's an opportunity for you to learn more about your personality or skill set, or learn to overcome, right? Before you quit, before you say, that's it, I had it. So just think of it as every piece as a learning opportunity. And once you talk with the right people, if they really say, yeah, it's time to jump, then jump, right? But don't give up on yourself too quickly, because the number one investment that you have is knowing yourself, and it will predict how well you have a future in your business, in your family, being a good wife, husband, and being part of the community. That's what all of the captains of the industries, they all say that. And it's true, because it's not, I believe it. It works.
Just to add, one of the great benefits that I've had is a roundtable. It's not just my, classmates from Fordham. It's not just colleagues from work. I mean, a diverse roundtable of people who first are confident in you, whether it's a mentor, your parents, but then also people that will be brutally honest because they want you to do well. For me, again, it's about having people from different perspectives and different landscapes, and they've all just become my tribe of support. And so that confidence, it's always it is challenging to build it in yourself, but when you have a tribe, and again, I call it my round table, but everyone needs a round table that support, but also the honesty that'll help you get to the next level.
Thank you, each of you, Michelle, Denya, Theresa, thank you so much. We really appreciate you all coming out and speaking from your experience. And we also want to thank your services and the offices of Multicultural Affairs for hosting this today. And thank you to our participants for coming. I hope you were able to take some great tokens of advice and experience. And thank you.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you.
everybody. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.